Welcome to A Thousand Years Together, where on Sunday we put the Palestinian olive wood Christ head behind us and we talk about metaphysics and theology. And today we'd like to ask ourselves the question: is Peter Thiel the Antichrist? Now, on Substack and also here on TikTok, I've spent a lot of time using Arabic and Muslim eschatology words like Dajjal. I love the word Dajjal, which is the roughly like the false messiah. I think in Arabic, a strict translation means the deceiver. So keep that in mind. And then I got another one recently, Al Jassasa. And Dajjal's sidekick, Al Jassasa, is a spy, is a scout, sort of like a Lone Ranger and Tonto kind of a thing. Peter Thiel is definitely, and Palantir is Al Jassasa. So if you look at what happened in Ukraine when they bombed the strategic bombers on, and also what happened to Hezbollah and what happened recently in Iran, those strikes happened with AI and with technology inside the country. In other words, it was total spy warfare. It isn't just like two countries attacking each other, but just so you know, the war on terror with missiles and bombs and B 52s and all that, that's winding down. Trump can't even fucking take it anymore. Last Sunday, he went out and said they have no idea what the fuck they're doing. That was the end of the kinetic, more conventional war on terror. Now we're moving to like the next thing, and that's based on Peter Thiel. So let's have some fun with this. And remember what Peter Thiel said about the assassination of the UHG CEO.
To those who think this shooter is a hero because he did it because he said this healthcare executive is presiding over a healthcare system which kills thousands of Americans by denying them cover, what would you say to them?
Um, it's I don't know what to say. I think I still think you should try to make an argument, and I think this is you should, there may be things wrong with our healthcare system, but you have to make an argument, and you have to try to find a way to convince people and change it by that. And this is this is not going to work.
Okay. So there's something wrong with him. He glitches like an AI system, like an AI bot. He sort of glitches out. And the reason is because he's a follower of Leo Strauss. All the neocons are like Leo Strauss freaks. They all believe in this thing called the noble lie. They think that the West is very stagnant, very decadent, and the only way out of this is to let go. Remember when Elon Musk said the problem with the West is empathy? All of these, sometimes I call them the Sith. Sometimes I call them, the soldiers of the Dajjal, or I like this new word, Jasasa. They all have this idea that the other guy you should throw in here is Alex Karp, is that the West is going to solve all of its problems with technology. Technology is now the pseudo religion of the West. It's not this guy. It's not even Zionism anymore. Like everybody just openly talks about this thing with AIPAC, and Trump can't even stand them, right? Trump can't even stand, and that's why he had to shut the war on terror down. Because what was going to happen? Just a couple more missile exchanges, and Israel would be destroyed, physically destroyed. The Iranians launched missiles at Qatar, however you say it, warned the U.S. so that they could evacuate, because if they ever, Iran is totally in control of the Middle East now. They can hit anything whenever they want with something that flies like 8,000 miles an hour. Trump knows that. That's why that part of the war is over. The problem is now, my fellow Americans, is that the war on terror is now totally at home, and it's totally digital. So let's go to some of the goofy things that Peter Thiel said to the New York Times recently.
implicit
Should
in
the
this.
human
Something specific like climate
Let's
change,
do
although
that.
there are lots
Hold
of
on.
other ones
Hold on. Sorry.
we come up
Productive.
with. There's a risk of, you know, I know bioweapons. You have all
race survive?
yes.
Okay.
But
Sorry.
But you would prefer the human race to endure, right? You're
yeah,
hesitating.
well,
Yes?
I don't know. I would.
This is a long
There's so many-
hesitation.
there's
This is
so
a
many-
long
there's so-
hesitation.
There's so many questions implicit in
Should the
this.
human race survive?
Yes.
Okay.
But I also would I also would like us to radically solve these problems,
Right.
and so
Because this is really he's afraid to answer his real thoughts. Okay, that's why he's glitching out. He is dissimulating. He is, and you've probably seen AI operates this way. Sometime I watched a woman say, "Is ChatGPT run by Palantir? Owned by Palantir?" And the bot said, "No, of course not. It's not owned by, but we're owned by OpenAI, and recently we're valued at 300 billion, and we're definitely not owned by Palantir." And then she won't relent. She keeps coming after him, and finally he says, "Yeah, all AI in the English-speaking world is now controlled by Palantir. You understand, people, that the United States of America is now controlled by that guy. That guy bought J.D. Vance, bought the Trump administration. The Trump administration is being run by Stephen Miller, who's written every executive order. Trump is the good slave and the reality TV star." So, which leads us to is, okay, all right, let's all calm down. Which leads us to our next question.
you know it's all the different sci-fi scenarios. Obviously, there.
Antichrist.
How much time do we have? How much time do we have?
What does that mean to you? What is the Antichrist?
How much time do we have?
We've got as much time as you have to talk about the Antichrist.
All right. Well, I could talk about it
But
for a
we're
long
near.
time. But I think there's always a question. How do we articulate some of these existential risks, some of the challenges we have, and they're all framed in this sort of runaway dystopian science text. There's a risk of nuclear war. There's a risk of environmental disaster, maybe something specific like climate change, although there are lots of other ones we come up with. There's a risk of bioweapons. You have all the different sci-fi scenarios. Obviously, there are certain types of risks with AI. But I always think that if we're going to have this frame of talking about existential risks, perhaps we should also talk about the risk of another type of a bad singularity, which I would describe as the one world totalitarian state. Because I would say the political solution, the default political solution people have for all these existential risks is one world governance. And the Christian framing, which in some ways is the same question, is Antichrist or Armageddon. You have.
Okay, so what he just did there, it's sort of like the guy who gives you your first opportunity to do cocaine. And he's saying, no, the real risk is that you don't do it. The real risk isn't me and Palantir and the fact that we're completely have taken over the U.S. government's computer systems and all AI based in the West. That's not the problem. No, the problem is that humanity would get together and create some sort of crazy one world government. And this is why the real problem is you're not going to try the drug. This is why humanity is the Antichrist. This is right out of the Bible, people. This is Dajjal. If that isn't the deceiver, I don't know what is. Now, if your daughter brought this guy back from college, you would pull her aside and be like, I don't know what you have to do, but that son of a bitch needs to get in the fucking car and get the fuck out of this house. Right? This guy is running the United States of America. You understand this? Heraclitus said, war is the father of all. He also said, insurgency should be put down like arson. This guy is an insurgent. It's the Neo Confederacy. The war on terror has come home.